Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, and evening from wherever you're joining. Welcome to this Accounting for Impact virtual event. We are pleased to have Amr, whom I will introduce very soon. Um, for those of you who join Accounting for Impact event for the first time, you may have read from our website or announcement. We are a network that supports and encourages engagement and impact for accounting scholars, but it usually goes also beyond accounting. So we are concerned about academic research to make a broader impact. And you can read our activities on our website, which I will post soon. We are here today to welcome our guest, Amr ElAlfy, who is at the University of Waterloo. Amr is working on area of sustainable finance, sustainable reporting. He's also involved with the WISA, the Waterloo Institute for Sustainable Aeronautics, and he will surely talk about that. And you will see that he also has a very interesting career path that he will also introduce himself, and this is kind of part of the talk. So the way it works, we have Erica Pimentel, who is my co-founder for Content for Impact, and she will moderate the session, basically taking questions at the end. So Amer will speak for about 30 minutes about the topic of double materiality as the event shows. And then we'll take a Q&A from the audience when he's finished. So without further ado, Amer, you can share your screen and we can move on. Thank you.
Let me share my screen and is it there?
Yeah.
Can I just test like one slide and
Yep.
then
Yep.
we're good?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's working. It's all yours.
So thank you so much, my dear mentor, Dr. Charles, for the introduction today. And thank you, kind of Erica, for facilitating the session today. Thanks everyone who's joining us. And my talk today would be about double materiality in action, like kind of how double materiality is being implemented, especially in the aviation sector. And let me give you like kind of a brief about myself. So I was never planning to be in academia. I had like kind of a BCom in accounting and finance to manage the family business. And in order to quit the family business, I wanted to go for one of the multinationals as a manager. So I applied for P&G and Nestlé, and I landed at Nestlé as the sustainability and development manager for the Middle East, North Africa, 18 countries, including like kind of the African Horn. We were responsible for the sustainability disclosure, a lot of stuff like kind of happening. And then I moved to 3M. 3M is a company where I really learned sustainability. So a shout out for everyone in 3M. For those who don't remember 3M products, if you remember the pandemic a couple years back, everyone had their masks. So they didn't increase like kind of their prices, even a single cent, making sure that this is going to governments and hospitals to as part of their corporate social responsibility. And speaking of that time, when a sustainability manager is developing a report, I remember that we were doing like kind of the GRI 3.1 and 4, and like kind of SASB came in 2011. But right now there are like multiple frameworks. Like imagine that you have a team of 3 in your team and you want to have a CDP score. So you're writing like kind of a CDP questionnaire, 200 pages until it's done. Now you have a GRI with a GRI content index, either core or comprehensive, in accordance or in reference, like at the moment, a SASB index, and then like the SDGs and TCFD. It was fun until 2015 when TCFD came in, and then in 2018 there was the ESG hype. Everyone remembers like kind of the ESG hype, yes? But ESG was like kind of in 2018, 2019. ESG like was there since 2005. That term was coined in 2005 in an IFC report called Who Cares Wins. So the term ESG was there since 2005. But the actual timing where ESG became a hype when Larry Fink sent like kind of the famous letter to all CEOs of BlackRock saying that all companies must have their ESG report. So now like kind of I remember that joke like kind of shared by me and like kind of multiple of my seniors and like kind of my colleagues by saying, this is the speed of the cheetah, this is the speed of the airplane, this is the speed of the light. And then everyone's becoming right now like a specialist in ESG. It's something that makes me really happy that we're seeing a lot of people in the sustainability domain and even like kind of the environmental, social, and governance domain but it's very concerning to me how this domain is being dominated or hijacked by a conventional mindset that only cares about financial performance or only cares about investors. And we can see that 2018, 2019 happened. And then there was a statement, like I love that like statement, September 11, 2020, when like the GRI and SASP came together and they said, guess what? And like the integrated reporting and CDP and CDSP as well. And they said, we are working together. But then SASP at that time said, no, 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 no. We are here just for investors. And that they made it clear. And then they had like kind of the merge with integrated reporting and they created the Value Reporting Foundation. The IFRS stepped in and said, we're gonna like kind of standardize this and we will report on using material topics in our statements. Okay, that started happening. I'm okay, like kind of let's see what's material. And let's see the two definitions of materiality based on two frameworks that I've used, the GRI and SASP. So in the GRI, can you read it? Like kind of take like kind of 10 seconds just to read it. Particular information considered material if it could influence the decision-making of stakeholders in respect to the reporting company. But SASP like kind of have it clearly, information that's reasonably likely to be important to investors. So this is like kind of considering multiple stakeholders, while SASP is only like kind of developing the report to investors. And this is really concerning because if you want to show the sustainability performance of the company, it's way beyond financial risk. It has like social indicators, it has EDI, it has procurement, it has manufacturing processes. It's a very comprehensive process. And the resources that you depend on that like kind of has a lot of biodiversity aspects that you need to take into consideration as well. And I can speak like kind of to the biodiversity topic separately because many companies right now are taking biodiversity as a very core important aspect because the increase in the cost that they're seeing because of biodiversity changes. So let's take a second to go into like kind of the SASP or the IFRS right now, like kind of materiality map. So if you go to materiality.sasp.org, it has like kind of an IFRS, and they are very clear with 11 sectors, 77 industries. That's like kind of perfectly fine on how they do the classification. But my problem is when you see the 5 broad dimensions of sustainability, you feel like kind of really happy. These are like kind of 5 were environmental, there's the leadership and the governance, there's the business model and innovation, there's the human capital and the social capital. Looks so good, right? Like, do you agree with me that this like kind of so far looks a very sustainable performance for organizations? But let's take a minute to see how that's like kind of being implemented in practice. So if I am a bank, like for example, I'm TD or RBC, like you name it, like just like as an example, or Bank X, and I want to start my journey. So I'm going to go into the materiality finder. I'm going to go into the financial sector, and I will go into the commercial banks. I want to see the relevant disclosure topics that are material that I should be reporting on. And here you would see that there are 5 topics that I need to report on. But there's none in the environmental dimension for commercial banks that they need to consider. 0. So that's like kind of the message that the single materiality or the financial materiality, what about all the loans that you're giving? What about all scope 3 in the financial sector that impact your scope 3 as a part of your lending activities and finance activities? And you would see like kind of a question on their website, why are some issues grayed out? And I will make it like kind of clear now. The SASP vary, and the issues in gray out were not identified during the standard setting process as the most likely to be useful to investors. So like kind of that's again being like kind of repeated that they are only concerning about investors at a time that as a sustainability practitioner, I should be caring about the inclusion-exclusion criteria of the stakeholders. Who should be on my table? Who's reading my report? Why I'm doing this in reality? And the concept of materiality right now, there are 4 concepts, but I included 3. I removed like kind of the dynamic materiality, and I had like kind of the 3 concepts being used. Financial materiality, and that's like kind of me as an accountant would use into like kind of my financial statements, and that would impact the financial performance of the business. And then impact materiality being used by the GRI, which is the impact of the business on the environment, society, and the economy. That's like kind of the definition of the GRI. But then there's that beautiful definition of the double materiality that combines both of them, the impact materiality and the financial materiality, because that's what all the stakeholders on the table would want to understand. If you follow the current landscape of the reporting practices at the moment, we're seeing that the ISSB right now is like kind of taking the lead, developing like kind of the IFRS S1 and S2, and everyone's like kind of getting ready for IFRS S1 and S2. They've taken the TCFD as being like kind of the S2, and they are saying that the influences, the standards complement, like kind of being complemented by the GRI. Okay, this is the current landscape. So let's see where actually things are happening in the aviation sector. And this nice net zero building is where I'm sitting right now. This is EV3 at the University of Waterloo. This is like kind of my office here, like kind of in the fourth floor. And I'm an assistant professor. And I really took a decision when I started my academic career to only work on projects that should have an impact, or something that is not just being a publication for a publication, but I want something that's being used by a larger audience, something that has an impact on the industry. So that being said, the first project that I worked on, and that's like kind of just to give an example of, because it's accounting for impact, one of the projects led by Professor Amelia Clark here is the Municipal Net Zero Action Research Partnership, or the NZAP project. You can check uwaterloo/NZAP. And I'm being the co-chair for the disclosure on climate change and climate mitigation. So the project is creating empowered measurement, analysis, and monitoring system for the disclosure and reporting and the climate budgeting for Canadian municipalities. You can see a lot of the partners, like kind of Canadian municipalities, Canadian universities, ICLEI as a partner, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities as like kind of the two bigger partners. And like this project is like funded by Environment and Climate Change Canada. An amazing project, and I would love to speak about it like more. But for the sake of this talk, I'm gonna take you into the double materiality in the aviation sector. So I serve as the associate director for the Waterloo Institute for Sustainable Aeronautics, WISA. You can Google uwaterloo/WISA. And WISA is established as a research hub for sustainable aeronautics to foster interdisciplinary inquiry, cross-partnerships, and experiential learnings that creates innovative solutions, informs the public policy towards sustainable, the future for the aviation and space industries. We, like kind of the majority of us, travel by air, right? Right? Like, can I see like kind of a show of hands from how many of you like kind of travel this year? I do. Okay. And this industry is responsible for 3% of the total of the global emissions. So it's a very energy intensive industry. And at WISA, we have tackled 3 main challenges that we want to have, or the research that we're doing. And we have more than, like, I would say 100 from all the 6 faculties at the University of Waterloo that we are working, and I'm the one leading like kind of the ESG, but there are social questions that we're handling. There's environmental questions or that we are working on, and also the kind of economic ones. And I will walk you briefly on examples for the social sustainability parameters. So there's like kind of the human factors, the stress of the pilots and the stress of like kind of the cabin crews. There's like kind of sustainable tourism. Everyone wants to fly, and we got tons of questions. What's a sustainable flight? Are having like kind of just offsets being a net zero flight? The answer is no. Even that would make you like kind of a net zero by calculation, but net zero has a lot of carbon ethics that needs to be integrated. And then there's a lot in terms of the EDI. You can imagine that the total workforce of the of pilots, less than 4% are non-male. So this is like kind of raises a concern to that industry. And then when it comes to the environmental sustainability, a big part of the work is like kind of sustainable aviation fuel. And Canada can be a global leader when it comes to sustainable aviation fuel, but we need to understand the cost and the technology of having that. There's a lot when it comes to emission reduction, part of my work, organizational boundaries, and like kind of what are the best ways for emission reductions, hybrid engines, e-planes, and like kind of these are the type of the project that we work on when it comes to the environmental sustainability. And then the economic sustainability, like, yes, you want to make money. Like everyone wants to make money. So you want to see how you can have remote pilots. You want to see like kind of optimization in the automation process. You want to see like kind of how cybersecurity could make sure that the data management for your airline is being protected for the safety of your customers. Now I'm gonna wear my academic hat, and this is the core for the topic, which is the SSHRC Partnership Engage with Flair Airlines. So the sustainability manager and the emission manager of Flair, and it's a partnership engage, thanks like kind of for SSHRC for their funding. And Flair is the ultra coast, ultra low carbon travel. That's like kind of their slogan. And they really wanted to know what's the best thing. Like we wanna develop our report. And we want to make sure that our report is done correctly. And everyone's talking about IFRS S1 and S2. And are we ready for the IFRS S1 and S2 or not? So we had like kind of three clear objectives for this project with Flair's team. So identifying the core indicators, the sustainability indicators in the airline industry, mapping both SASB and like the GRI and IATA, and I will walk you like kind of through this briefly, and then assessing their readiness for the ISSB mandates. Like, are they ready? If they just like kind of use SASB or the IFRS, is that enough for them or not? And then we're developing using explainable AI an open access ESG tool that seriously can help organizations to report and to map. So it's like kind of a descriptive what you're doing and a prescriptive how can you enhance your performance in order to enhance your sustainability performance and your sustainability scoring as well, which is important for all stakeholders. So IATA, which is the International Air Transport Association, had their guide to sustainability reporting in the aviation sector. So that was like kind of the one used by the majority. And in that report, they are saying that people are right now like kind of moving from financial or single materiality to double materiality. And there's a quote that seriously, I want you like kind of to take a second to read it, please. This is from the guide from IATA. So while everyone is saying single materiality, IFRS, IATA is saying double materiality allows for a more complete picture of the sustainability performance and better management for potential and future risks. And they are saying this is how you should do your materiality exercise. And I can spend a whole day just on this as a practitioner, not as an academic. So this is where the impact on the stakeholders, and that's like kind of the impact on the performance of the company, in order as a sustainability practitioner to make sure that you're having all stakeholders. It takes weeks and weeks. Are we missing anyone? Do we have all suppliers? Do we have a supplier compliance list? Are we having all NGOs? Can any NGO come to my meeting and say, we want you to do this and this and that? No, there's an inclusion-exclusion criteria as a practitioner. You need to audit my meetings for 2 years. And then in the 3rd year, you come in and say, now we understand your agenda. Now we understand your sustainability strategy. And we urge you to consider 1, 2, 3. Okay, then you can have your impact in identifying the most material aspects for me. And that's like kind of the GRI where you start like kind of doing the universal sector and the topic standards, and then the 200s for the economic, 300s for the environmental, 300 for the social, and 400 for the 300 for the environmental and 400 for the social. Then you have that GRI content index detailed where you really can understand your impact, saying like kind of the inclusion-exclusion criteria of your stakeholders and how this impact the sustainability performance of your organization. This exercise is actually the most important exercise. A good start, a good end, a bad start, usually a bad end. So like kind of you need to make sure that you're including and engaging with your stakeholders. And in Canada, it's not just about stakeholders. There's like kind of tons of indigenous communities that we need to include. So there's like kind of rights holders as well. So the language is shifting just from stakeholders as a common language for business practices into stakeholders and rights holders and how the business of the operation can impact communities. Let me walk you like kind of here. So if you do the same exercise for the materiality finder for the SASB or like kind of the ISSB, these are the 4 out of 26 that you need to include as being material indicators when it comes to the aviation sector. So when we showed like kind of the Flair team, what they're ready for, there's nothing related to EDI. Nothing related to EDI. That's not material. We don't care about like kind of EDI in our organization. What are you doing? And then when it comes like kind of to supply chain management, do you understand your business? It's not just about like kind of changing your straws from plastic straws to paper straws and saying I'm a sustainable airline. There's tons of operation. There's water like kind of management. There's contingency water, contingency fuel that you take into operations that you need to understand in order to have like the business ethics and the competition, labeling and marketing, having like kind of offsetting on your website. Do you want to buy like kind of carbon offsets to be a net zero? Okay, who's like kind of where are these offsets going? How did they start? There's tons of details that needs to be included there when you are doing the materiality exercise for your airline. And that takes me to the slide where this is the Airline of Sustainability Reporting Handbook from IATA. And they are stating clearly, we are using the GRI for our report, like kind of based on our reporting. And you could see that 80% of the airlines globally. So I hired a PhD student, Nisma Hassan, like kind of also like kind of Sid as my master student. Both of them are doing their master and PhD on sustainable aeronautics. Amazing HQP, like kind of that I would ever. So thank them if they are joining today. And we are actually seeing that 80% of the airlines are using the GRI because of the impact materiality. And I urge, like Charles, as a board member of the GSSB, to start working on as a sector standard for the aviation. Yes, the content index could be a good starting point, and it's on the way because I spoke like kind of with the GRI services, and I proudly say that I translated the universal sector standards and 5 of the topic standards from English to Arabic with the GRI. Yes, I might be biased a bit towards like kind of the GRI, but because I've seen the impact that they are doing, and when you see the GRI people talking, they're saying we're learning. We're still getting that input from our stakeholders. Our stakeholders have the impact, and you can add this language is a living lab versus here are the material topics that you need to report on, and you are allowed to add some more. This is very concerning to me if I'm a sustainability manager or a fresh sustainability associate in an airline saying that I followed the SASB, just having 4 like kind of sustainability indicators and saying that I'm following like kind of the SASB standard. It has way more details than that. And we're currently like kind of using the Alpha Lab. That's like kind of my very small research lab. You can check uwaterloo.ca/ARL Alpha Research Lab, and we are doing using explainable AI, the tool, and we have mapped the sustainability indicators from the IATA, the environmental ones, the social ones, and the governance ones, aligned with both SASB and GRI, but we found that the GRI is way more comprehensive, way more applicable, and that's like the framework that I claimed that should be done. Yet the GRI hopefully will shift their language from impact materiality to double materiality, same as like kind of the ESRS, like kind of in Europe, which combines both the impact and the financial aspects, because a lot in the economic dimension, the 200s in the GRI, speaks to that financial part. And last 2 minutes in my talk, I want to speak to a couple projects that we are working on currently, like kind of through our team. The ones like kind of the WISA simulators, and we've put in ASHRC and FRF on HAP. So we have like kind of through our FedDev grant, we purchased through WISA 3 simulators, 2 located at the Waterloo Regional Airport, and 1 here like kind of on campus. And these simulators can put pilots during their trainings under different weather conditions, under different stress conditions, but they can save a lot in their trainings when it comes to their emissions. So we are doing the environmental impact and the social impact on the simulators, on the training, and how that can actually increase the competencies and the capacities of Canadian pilots. And a very interesting research question that I'm currently working on is like kind of with Gulnaz Bulbul. She's an assistant professor here also like kind of at Waterloo, is the contingency fuel. So the contingency fuel is the extra fuel that the airplane would carry. And do you actually use that contingency fuel? The answer is 90% you're not going to use it. But the more volume that you carry, the more your emission factor will change. So you want to know what's the level of contingency fuel from 10% extra fuel or 5% or 3%. But this has a lot of a dilemma between the trust, where the dispatcher or the pilot is okay to carry less contingency fuel, like, no, I need that extra fuel, while that extra fuel is actually increasing the volume of the airplane. And it's called cost for cost. So you're actually increasing the volume of the airplane and you're consuming more fuel. So that's a very cost concerning. And then there's the, hopefully, will continue to be the WISA Annual Summit. And like kind of Charles is here, like kind of co-chairing the WISA Summit with me, where we bring a lot of the aviation players. And through our research and our applied research and impactful research, we can talk to them about their challenges and how seriously we can enhance their sustainable finance questions, their ESG disclosures, their new challenges in this controversial sector, because it's very useful and at the same time very energy intensive. This is Chad also, and I want to give like a shout out to so Chad was the Flair person we used to work with, and just this week he shifted to Porter as their sustainable aviation fuel champion, and hopefully like kind of he can actually lead the agenda for sustainable aviation fuel for Porter Airlines. And because of the impact that all these people have done, I want to take like the last moment in this talk to give a heartfelt thank you, because this is Accounting for Impact. And this is actually my first time that I'm attending an Accounting for Impact event. And I'm happy like kind of to shift from the industry to academia. But the top 4 academics here were the top that, seriously, I consider them like mentors who didn't mentor me, except Charles right now is like the one that's mentoring me at the moment. This is Rob Gray, may he rest in peace. And he was the one very cynical at the beginning of all sustainability reporting frameworks. He was the one that highlighted the limitations of the GRI, from like picking cherries into like kind of the GRI standards in 2017 to where we're at like kind of at the moment. Carol Adams, like with all the work that she's doing like with the GRI and understanding the comprehensiveness of sustainability and understanding that it's not just about ticking the box for some financial or risk indicators. And Skolk and my mentor, Charles, like kind of Charles, who would also kind of be there. And then ElAlfy, my supervisor, who is currently actually Amelia Clark, who is at Waterloo, and she's leading like the NZAP project. Suzanne Kearns, who is the founding director of the Waterloo Institute for Sustainable Aeronautics, and Leanne Kitty. Like seriously, Leanne, you can't imagine how your support and kindness has had an impact on me to continue a lot of the work, and feeling that I belong to a community of academics who really don't care just about publications, but care about the impact of their work. So thank you. And I'll leave it here to the floor.
Thanks, Amr. That was great. Very interesting. So I'd like to kick off. We have a bunch of questions in the chat already. I have some questions I'd like to ask you as well, but let's start by turning it to the audience. Prince Ken, would you like to come on online and read out your question and ask it directly to Amr, please?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Erika. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you.
Yes. Okay, fine. Thank you. Nice presentation there. My question is, what should be the focus, for practitioners and researchers in sustainability? Oftentimes you hear the concept like ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance, ESE, environmental, social, and economic, sometimes triple bottom line reporting and all that. So what should be the focus for academics as well as practitioners? And added to that is oftentimes these concepts are used interchangeably. All right. So for accountants, are we focusing on either of them or triple bottom line reporting? Then lastly, what is sustainability reporting to accountants? So we need to have a working definition as an accounting practitioner or as accounting researchers to know exactly what sustainability accounting should be. So my question.
Thank you so much, Prince, for the passion that you were asking about this problem. And thank you for the how confusing that topic could be for academics and also for practitioners. For academics, sadly, I'm very junior in academia, but you need to take the hype of what's being said. So right now, if you say ESG, ESG is already done. So it's not a lot. So you want to see right now, everyone's talking about biodiversity. And then everyone will, once the Canadian Sustainability Standard Board will step in, they will do about indigenous and Canada. So there's these hypes, but that's what we should really be caring about. We should take a step back and let's define sustainability. What is sustainability? What's the definition of sustainability? Okay. And then are you taking a broadland definition, sustainable, that cares about the existing generations and take the future generations? Okay, how can we do this? If I'm buying a desk for $100, am I putting the right dollar sign on the natural resources that I'm using? Do I really care about the emissions that I'm having? So you're seeing that companies only care for scope 1 and scope 2, and they tick the box. We have done a GHG inventory according to the greenhouse gas protocol. 80 to 90% of the emissions of the companies in the manufacturer sector come from scope 3. So if actually you don't start working on your scope 3 right now, you don't understand the impact. So the understanding of the impact of your operations and the dependence on the natural resources in your operations is a core. Do accountants want to really do that extra math and start talking about it? The answer is no. And let me give you a brief from a friend of mine who is a CFO of a tourism hotel. And the guy's only about cost reduction. Sustainable company means that we have enough funds to continue in operation for 5 years. That's their definition of sustainability, okay? And only they care about financial materiality, risk mitigation, and that's it, okay? So all of a sudden, that person came to me and said, I want to understand what's biodiversity accounting. And I was like, what on earth is happening? Why biodiversity accounting? And he said, our hotel is getting a decline in the number of customers, not because of the quality of the service, but because there's biodiversity changes in the coral reefs happening. So people are not coming for diving and snorkeling as before. And I need to understand what's happening for the biodiversity. How do I do this? And then I said, hey. So it's not just about numbers. You are actually dependent on the marine ecology. So you need an ecologist to understand how the use of your marinas and use of your gas has impacted the corals. And your business right now, tourists are not coming to your hotel and they're going to better diving spots that are more sustainable. Okay. And I would get back, Prince, in order to make it precise. The definition of sustainability is something that captures the dependence and the impacts of your operation. So you need to understand everything in your value chain, including the people. If I'm considering about financial materiality, I would outsource the majority of my work so that I don't pay for occupational health, environmental safety, or I pay fair wages for my people, or that I care about the EDI, not in my backyard. But if I'm really caring about sustainability, then I would understand how can I be a good citizen? And that speaks to the corporate legitimacy. And speaking of the interchangeably, if I tell you there's more than 100 words that speak people, profit, planet, ESG, 4 C's, and then ESG, comprehensive sustainability, then I would move from just a labeling into the term comprehensive sustainability, something that is really comprehensive and being measured. Even though measuring is hard, but you need to start measuring it in a way that is being adopted by your different rights holders and stakeholders to understand the impact of your operation, not just currently on the financial performance. CEOs, they don't care about sustainability. They care about their bottom line so that they have enough dividends by the end of, not the majority, there's like some of them. And I remember 3M, George Buckley at that time, he said it on a phone call, I can never go green when the bottom line is red. And he really cared about the company at that time. And the VP strategy came in and said, John, sustainability is an investment. You are going to invest in 3M, and then we're going to harvest it top down. We're going to harvest in our sustainable products. We're going to harvest in our communities, and we're going to harvest in that profitability. Did I cover your questions, Prince, or anything that I missed?
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Prince. You're very
That was
welcome.
great. Great. Thank you, Amr, and thank you to Prince for your question. Let's now turn to Diana. Diana, would you like to come online and ask your question? Okay, well, if not, I'll read out Diana's question. So she said, in the context of low-cost airlines in Indonesia, is it truly possible to implement sustainability reporting while maintaining profitability, given the challenges of securing greener fuel, which remains costly and limited in availability? Furthermore, could sustainability reporting in this sector risk becoming merely a tool to enhance corporate value and attract stakeholders rather than reflecting genuine sustainable practices? And I think this doesn't only speak to Indonesia, but speaks to many other places as well.
Thank you, Diana, for this. That's actually the master's project or the master thesis of Sid, who's working on low-cost carriers and ultra-low-cost carriers, and how they have very limited resources to conduct a comprehensive sustainability report. But at the same time, they really want to make sure that their sustainability report is a tool, not a goal. So as a sustainability manager, my goal is to develop a report at the end of, that's my KPI, to have a sustainability report issued to the CXOs. But the report should be it's not the goal, it's a tool through which we understand our own performance, how can we enhance our performance, and what's our target. That's why when you're setting this priority matrix with the GRI on the impact on the company and the impact on the stakeholders, you want to see your current resources and how can you move from point A to point B. Whether that emission reduction. So emission reduction, for example, in ultra low cost carriers can be very simple. So once you land, Diana, okay, you would have like kind of the two engines still working, right? Just to keep like kind of the AC until you take like kind of your carry-ons and you go like kind of to the gates. If you just like turn off one of these engines so that you're actually using only one engine, you're decreasing your emissions by X%, right? What about if we change the nature of the electricity from like fossil fuel operated engines to hybrid, same as like kind of just have an electricity plug, which is a very simple change in low-cost carriers and ultra low-cost carriers. So you're using a cleaner or a relatively cleaner source of energy, reducing your emissions, reducing your cost, and at the same time enhancing your performance. What about understanding how you can share with your stakeholders and your clients or the travelers, the passengers? Here's what we're doing so that the reporting is actually not a kind of a greenwashing cliche to gain legitimacy, but it's actually a dialogue. Here's what we're doing. And you can have a 365 reporting using a platform or so where people say, this was a good trip, and I want you like kind of to change like single-use plastic into organic, for example, utensils on the plane. Perfect. That's like kind of one thing. Can we change like our source of energy where part of that's like kind of sustainable aviation fuel? Yes, it will be costly, but it's actually being mandated right now in Europe. So we're seeing that transition from normal fuels like kind of airplane fuel to like sustainable aviation fuel, and that's like the new era that we're having different type of e-planes like electric planes coming But then sustainability in that sector has tons of aspects. You could be more sustainable by creating more jobs to the communities where you work. You can be more sustainable actually by understanding the water management and like kind of the recyclables in the material that you're having. So look to the GRI content index and check the economic, the environmental, and the social parameters and the governance parameters that are there, and see what's relevant to that airline. So that is not just like kind of greenwashing or lip smear, like kind of ticking the box that we have done something, but an ongoing living dialogue with your stakeholders, making sure that you didn't miss anyone. A question that I always ask my team, did we miss anyone on the table? Okay, and that's like kind of the most important part. Are we having everyone on our table that should be there, have their voice, so that this ongoing engagement is happening? Diana, if you can just like give me a thumb up if I covered that question, or you need like any further explanation. And thank you for this great question. It doesn't only apply to low-cost carriers, but also like kind of for the bigger ones, and for not just for the aviation sector, but the manufacturing and other sectors as they go. Yeah.
Thanks, Amr. That was very informative. Irene, would you like to come online and ask your question, please?
Yeah, thank you so much for the information. I'm very interested in this topic. I teach a course in sustainable energy development, and it's a graduate level program. And the students are interdisciplinary. They take business courses, engineering courses, law courses, and environmental courses. And then the capstone project is working with businesses on projects in order to reduce their emissions. We've had 2 projects with our local airport authority, and I totally agree with you. The last project we did, I'm happy to send it to you, was turning off motors and saving GHG emissions and saving energy, and it was cost effective, and all the numbers are there. But my question is, how are the airport authorities working together with the airlines in order to find ways to reduce emissions and be more sustainable? Is there any, you mentioned who should be at the table. Do you have the airport authorities at the table? Because there are a lot of things I think that you can do together in order to become more sustainable. Thank you.
You're welcome, Irina, and thank you for this question. And actually, I'm gonna tell you, like, I would be happy, like, really to connect and share with you some of the projects that we're doing. So imagine that we're doing the Waterloo municipality, and there's a Waterloo regional airport. There is working on silos of the Waterloo municipality counting for the emissions of the airport. So that's like kind of where, like, I was very surprised. How are you doing like kind of the total GHG for that organizational boundary? And you're saying it's too hard, like kind of to include for the airport. And that's our coming grant application that we're working on, that the airport, how do we measure? So the aeronautics would be airports, airlines, and airspace. So like the 3 of them. And like kind of we're working on kind of on airlines at the moment. Airports is my second on the table, and how can they use the same indicators but from an airport aspect? And there's a huge working on silos or separation when it comes to the impact of the air. They should be on the same table, and that's like kind of happening. So I met with IATA ESG team, and they are shifting towards more of their sustainability team. So how can we coordinate between different airlines? Because all of the emissions of the airlines coming, like kind of landing or taking off from an airport, that should be counted into their operations. So this connectivity, or this, how would I say it? Like understanding that the value or the value chain of like the operations and how they feed each other was still like, it's super segregated. They're still working on silos. But now, as you understand the impact and the dependencies of your operations and how to include it, like kind of in even in developing your GHG inventory, so this language is shifting, and I will be more than happy to connect and share with you. Because like if I tell you that the Waterloo Regional Airport are putting $1 million in cash for this project. Yes, we're interested, we're very keen on this, and we have like kind of the simulators for the training, we have like kind of the electric planes, we have like kind of new fleets coming in that have different emission factors than older fleets. So like 2 airplanes, each of them have different emission factors. So how can we measure for that? So there's industrial ecologists on the table. There's like kind of sustainability disclosure team, and there's like kind of the airplane part as well. But I'll be more than happy, Irene, to connect and to continue the collaboration, especially that a continuum of this is Amelia Clark's like NZAP, which is the municipality. This municipality doesn't count in at all for the airport, and the airport doesn't count in for the airline. So we are seeing kind of everyone is just focusing on their own thing while it's totally dependent on the other. And that's the true definition of sustainability. No one is just counting on their own part. It all like kind of links together. This earth is very beautiful and complicated at the same time.
Yeah. Excuse me, I'll just thank you. That's great information. I know Amelia Clark very well, and I'm very happy to share. Our projects are all public unless for some reason the organization embargoes them, but I'm happy to send you, what we're information about what we're doing as well.
I would connect like kind of Irene after this one, and I'm going to share with you like kind of the NSAT application that we're working on, and happy to like kind of to see collaboration avenues, definitely.
Okay,
thank you.
Great. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Irene. Thank you.
Fantastic. Glad we're making these connections. Gaurav, would you like to come online and share your question?
Sure. Firstly, thank you for your presentation. It was great, and quite in line with some of the discussions I've had with Professor Charles in the past. This is more of a point of view that I want to have with you in terms of if you see SASB materiality map, it just categorically states that for a particular industry sector, these are the kind of topics that companies need to report on, but it completely misses the point on the value chain assessment. So in my work as a practitioner, I worked in Africa for some companies there. There is an element of stakeholder engagement which also gets missed. I've gone far enough to actually reach the local communities and villagers and talking to them through interpreters to get their viewpoint. And some of the topics that comes out are not even in GRI disclosures, but GRI gives you that bandwidth that you can define your own disclosures and report on that. So what's your viewpoint, considering CSSB is just financial materiality, if you really see, and a lot of Americas and Australia and Brazil and Mexico, everybody is going towards IFRS. It kind of misses the whole point on deep value chain assessments and stakeholder engagement, right?
Thank you. Exactly. Like thank you for your comment and for your true understanding of how the stakeholder engagement and how this materiality, like that materiality exercise, the inclusion, exclusion of stakeholders, who should be on my table? Should I include, like, who did I miss? And then sitting on that table, what are the material topics that we're having? That exercise takes like 3 months as a practitioner just to make sure that you didn't miss anyone. And honestly speaking, if you want to like kind of do it correctly, okay, let's take Nestlé, for example. So Nestlé would have like George Clooney coming as the endorsement, and this is like sustainable farming and espresso. Like I have an espresso machine like kind of in my bag, and I drink espresso. What is the percentage of like kind of recyclable metal in the espresso capsules? What's about like kind of, are you actually talking to the real farmers, or these are just representative from governments that has nothing to do with the real farmers? And farming is tough. Farming is like, are you talking to the real communities that will be impacted by, this is recording, so I want to be like as politically correct as possible. But you can see how Shell, when they went to Niger Delta, they had something called strategic CSR. And I know there's like sustainability manager well. And they went there for 3 years, even before having a single drill in the Niger Delta. And they built schools. They had like kind of hospitals, like kind of funded by Shell as their corporate social responsibility, so that people are willing for Shell to come in. And then see like kind of the drills that were there and like kind of how the local communities were impacted in Niger Delta, and nothing's happened. Like, okay, we're going to pay like kind of a fine, let's pay the fine. But like kind of the financial, the business case, the financial impact, if I pay $100 versus the impact of $1,000, let me pay a fine of $100. Okay, and that's it. That's like kind of the externalities. What about like kind of the local communities? What about the species? What about seriously, the quality of the water there? What about the air pollution that you've caused? Is anyone putting a dollar sign on air pollution? That is where, like, I think that the GRI, in a very humble, proactive way, builds that community stakeholder engagement. While I'm seeing, and I coin my mentor, Professor Charles Schuh, like kind of in hijacking of sustainability being done by conventional accountants, only caring about financial materiality and like kind of the cash flow and profitability. We're seeing Milton Friedman, like kind of mindset dominating the word at a time that seriously we're having climate change. And we're seeing geopolitics in the US happening right now with the climate change denial. Guess what? Anyone here likes ice cream? I love ice cream, right? Anyone likes like kind of the Haagen-Dazs ice cream with almonds? I do. The Haagen-Dazs ice cream is increasing in price by almost 10% because there were no pollination, there were no bees in California this season. So they had like kind of to have induced pollination for their almond trees, and that increased the cost by 10%. So we are seeing that increase in the cost. The cotton in Africa, and I'm originally like kind of from Egypt, so I understand like kind of how the impact on the agriculture sector. We are seeing an increase of 16 to 20% in the cotton prices this year. That will impact the diapers for our kids, fem products, and others, right? We're seeing like kind of a lot of flooding happening in the US that many companies in Montreal are no longer offering flood insurance. So like climate change is there. And once it starts hitting their pockets, then they will ask about it. Same as the example for the biodiversity accounting, that CFO never asked about anything on sustainability or nature or what it means until the biodiversity accounting hit their financial pocket. Yeah. Then, okay, now it's like kind of it's becoming material. Guess what? It has been material ages before it hit your P&L. It is material because of the species that live there. It is material because of the communities that depends on that. Especially if you're in a farming or fishing, you name like kind of the community. So it's not just about the multinationals dominating the sector. And it is really hard to continue that mindset that the IFRS, everyone's like, and this project with Flair was all about the readiness for the ISSB mandates. And guess what? At the end of this project, we were saying you are far ahead of the game, not just by adopting like kind of the IFRS, but like kind of if you're using a framework that provides a more comprehensive understanding of sustainability, that has that form of stakeholder engagement. And guess what? In Canada, and I'm like kind of a naturalized Canadian, a proud naturalized Canadian, and understanding how we're like kind of using the land of Indigenous and the resources of Indigenous is eye-opening for me. I'm still learning, and I would love to continue learning like this part just to make sure that I'm a global good citizen wherever I work, me and my 2 daughters and my wife and like kind of interest.
Perfect. No, thanks for your comments. It's great to know that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, great. So I think we have time for one more question. Merity, would you like to come online and ask your question, please?
Sure, happy to. Thank you. This is really interesting. I'm interested both as an accounting researcher and in particular because my daughter is one of that 4% female pilots in the industry, even narrower because she's a military pilot. And so a double minority from that perspective. And so, I just want to thank you for your passionate defense of the importance of thinking about those human factors and the broad sense of things. There are planes that she cannot fly because she happens to be my height, which is relatively short. And so right from who's designing the planes through to how they're built and how adjustable the seating systems are or the heads-up displays, those are really important issues, as well as how do you make the environment a welcoming environment for sustainability. And I guess if I have a question, it would be, can we link, just in terms of how important this is, can we link sustainable aeronautics to air incidents, whether they are crashes or near misses or something of that nature? I think there must be ties between the work that the transportation safety boards do and this broad sense that you've got of sustainability.
Thank you for your question. And I wish Suzanne was here. So Suzanne, she is the founding director of WISA. She's a pilot and she's a scholar. and we were debating this on the definition of sustainability for the airlines, and the majority was just about safety, as we just mentioned. So safety is the big thing. Like safety is a sustainable airline that has like kind of the least number of incidents or risks. But as we go into that definition of what's a sustainable airline, and once they understand the impact of their operations on communities, on resources, on fossil fuels, this awareness is actually the starting point for any company. How do I get everyone in my company from, for a bank, let's take like kind of a bank, from a teller to a risk manager to like anyone like portfolio manager, to understand the impact of our operation. Manufacturing, how do I understand like kind of sourcing, procurement, child labor that might be there from an outsource. In the aviation sector, how do I understand the manufacturing of the plane model that I'm having? How can we change like kind of the energy sources? Can we change to green hydrogen or blue hydrogen completely as a design from other engines that are there? How can I actually enhance the overall GHG impact of my flight, just as a flight? And how can I continue this awareness section? So it comes from the governance. A good governance is the starting point. If you have, and I really like kind of just mentioned here, like on a comment that I just read, that CFOs right now are having more of like their mandates is getting the sustainability with them. I'm really happy with that, like really happy with this, because they right now, they need to understand like the interchangeable and the, like kind of the connected pieces. But I'm afraid of an agency problem that might be there if their payments is compensated to ESG scores. So they are actually doing this for their ESG scores, and happy to, like, this is one topic that has been discussed. But when I like question this with the all like kind of my team of sustainability practitioners, like we always question that, and happy to connect on this. So it all comes back to the governance. A good governance, there might be like kind of an excellent CFO or an excellent chief operational officer who understand the true meaning of sustainability and wants everyone in the organization to implement it. And in sustainability, like Kaplan 1984, like they called competitors rivals, rivalry of like kind of and then competitors. Now we're using team players. We're all in this together. So like kind of we're not competing. We're actually collaborating. You will win a game and I will win like kind of the second game, but take the best practices from me and I will take the best practice from you. Should be like, and a question to hear, like, and I want to get like Erica, help me with a poll. Like, I really don't know how to do it. On your sustainability agenda, should you have your competitors or your other market players to share with you whether you're on the right track or not? And that's like kind of the industry practice. Yes, here's what we're doing. And like kind of how can we collaborate to enhance the sustainability practices within aviation, within banking, within manufacturing, within agriculture, you name it. So the question, like, I'm still learning, happy to continue learning, and happy to like kind of to put my 2 cents of knowledge on the table always to whoever like kind of needs it. And yeah, we have 2 minutes left, so I have to stop it here and I'll pass it back to Erica and Charles. Thanks everyone who attended today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amr. Charles, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Amr, for the presentation. I didn't know you make so many reference to some of what I did before, but there was not maybe even a surprise. We do have to go meeting together actually on the topic, so that's good. Erica, thank you for moderating, and thanks for the audience for all your engagement and questions. We happen to know the event quite in advance this time. So next event is on December 9th at 10 a.m. Same time as today, but December 9th, on collaborating in change and accounting education. We will have Irene Vicek, we are confirmed. So you will receive information on that via email or social media. And I also posted our website. If you're not on the list, you can just sign up on there and we will collect your email addresses if you don't receive AFI news still, and you will be informed with everything that's happening and beyond. So we can, I think, close it now. Thank you very much. And we will see you hopefully at next AFI events. Thank you, everyone.